The purpose of your business is to make profit for you to be able to spend on the lifestyle that you want, right? Not just to churn out customer outcomes. I think customer outcomes are actually a byproduct. The main purpose of your business is to make profit for you as the owner, right? So take a long, hard look at which clients you're working with. Right? Your D clients are the ones you don't make as much profit on because they consume more of your time, right? And your team's time to deliver to. And so that's one of the first things we want to look at. When we start to isolate who are the best clients, we need to start looking at the commonalities of those. Where are they? How did they buy from you? Who were they referred by? Right? What process did they go through to purchase from you? And then really start to isolate what it is that is generating those ideal clients and do more of that and less of the other stuff.
Hello and welcome to Marketing Speak. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer. It is my pleasure to have Tim Hyde with us. Tim is a founder and chief automation fixer, a business growth strategist, Australia's leading authority in sales and marketing automation for small businesses. His company, Win More Clients, is an Australian-based multi-award-winning marketing automation agency founded in 2014, and it specializes in helping clients to win more clients with less effort. His experience helping small business owners implement marketing, sales, and automation experience is what led to the creation of Win More Clients, the first consulting firm that focused on driving predictable revenue through the use of intelligently designed strategy and tools created and tailored specifically for the marketing industry. To date, he has worked with over 1,000 clients in 37 countries and now have a team in Australia, the US, Czech Republic, Pakistan, and in the Philippines. Tim, it's so great to have you on the show.
Stephan, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear your origin story, how you ended up focusing on automation and winning more clients as a way to, serve humanity in this life. So how did all this come about?
I'm actually going to blame Uncle Scrooge. I have this vague recollection. It has been validated by my parents, so I know it's reasonably true, of reading an Uncle Scrooge golden book as maybe a 4 or 5-year-old. Right, it was my favorite book. I used to cart it around everywhere. And the one thing that I sort of remember from that, to this date, I really don't know what Uncle Scrooge actually does for all his money. But I just remember him rowing his rowboat around his giant money pit and then diving in, and looked like he was having so much fun. I thought, I want a money pit, right? So I was a 6-year-old when I moved. When I moved to my current hometown. I thought, well, how can I create my own money pit? And I arrived at the idea of founding a circus, right? And so I invited all the neighborhood kids around and charged them about 20 cents admission. I think it might have been 10 cents admission, and had them all dress up and act in my circus. For money, and everyone was having a great old time, as you can imagine. And with with the proceeds of that first business venture, I bought 2 things. I went down to our local street markets and I bought a brass inlaid oak cigar box, which very neatly fit all my coins into it. So that was my money pit of sorts, my first little money pit. And the second thing I bought was 100 1-cent sweets. Right, from our local shops on the way home from school. And it was in a sandwich bag, right? And sandwich bags aren't as big as they used to be, I swear, unless my hand's just bigger. But it was so full of chocolate and, and lollies and sweets and stuff that it didn't actually fit. It was so full, the little corners were just sort of twizzled over a little bit to hold everything in. And I ate the entire bag of sugar on the walk home from school. I thought this... I don't know if it was the sugar high I got or something like that, but I thought this was the best thing ever, that I could have fun and make money and turn it into sugary sweets.
and thus began the addiction.
thus began the addiction. I tried a whole bunch of things sort of as a teenager, but somehow I managed to sort of develop this knack of finding opportunity that I guess maybe others didn't see. So, I introduced a sausage sizzle to the school fete as a 10-year-old or something. And that sausage sizzle and drinks made more money than the rest of the fete put together, because previously it was all just cakes and cakes and tea. And I'm like, I don't want cake and tea. I want a sausage in a bread roll, right? And a Coke. Brought in Ugg boots from China and sold those. Made and sold wine racks door to door. You name it. I tried a whole bunch of different stuff. And as an adult, I think that I'd gone into IT. Pretty much sort of just as a precursor to the internet was sort of becoming a thing, and writing code. And in the late 90s, a mate of mine came to me and said, let's start this website that we eventually called the Riot Act. Okay. And, pretty much the sort of one of the, I guess, the first social media sites in Australia as we know it, because it was very much a sort of community driven platform where people could submit their own content and sort of engage with other people's content, right? What we now know as social media. And, that took traction through the noughties, ended up teaching a lot of marketing agencies what digital marketing was in our hometown. But the thing that I found that kind of harkened back to my IT experience was that marketing was this journey between, people who didn't know who your business was, right through to them becoming raving fans. Now, I know you're in Miami, Stephan, so, the Dolphins, for example, as a football club, are really good at getting people to pay them to do their marketing for them, right? So you see fans running around in all your Dolphins gear, right? But the Dolphins haven't paid you to promote them. You have paid them for the privilege of doing so. And so we have this customer journey between, I don't know who the Miami Dolphins are, right through to, I am paying you for the privilege of promoting you. The other
yes.
that's the whole
even wearing face paint.
Face paint, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
That's you. They're not paying you for the privilege of doing so, of promoting them. It's the other way around, right? And I likened it to a bit my IT experience, and if you recall back, usually code is a little bit better constructed now before it gets released. But, everyone remembers of our age, remembers the sort of Microsoft blue screen of death, or the little spinning wheel on your screen that just spins wheels while it's trying to load something. And that's very much what happens in a marketing context as well. That bit of code on that error message you're getting in your software is just because it's gotten to a point in the code somewhere between line 1 and line 158 million, where it doesn't know what to do with the inputs. So it just hangs, okay, and doesn't know what to do next. And your marketing journey is very much the same. You've got clients who don't know who you are, discover who you are, and if they don't know what to do next, they get that sort of blue screen of death and they wander off into the wilderness and they go and buy from somebody else.
Yep.
And so we need to be really deliberate about that. And through my experience with the Riot Act, I was seeing this a lot with customers as well, is that we would generate an absolute ton of interest for them. And they would go, it didn't work. I'm going, I can see that 6,839 people clicked on that 300 by 300 banner. So where do they go next? What was the bit of broken code in your marketing context that meant, you didn't take people to the next step, right? And just like your kids, right? Your kids don't want to do what you want them to do, right? They've got other priorities, right? Your customers have the same as well. If they don't know what to do next, they get a blue screen of death and they wander off and they go and do something else, which is not what you want them to do. It's what they want to do, right? So, when I left that in 2013, 2014 and started Win More Clients, was very much looking at, well, what is this customer journey? Let's map it out. And what is the things that we can do in a marketing context and systemize it through automation that makes the next step easier for your customer to do than what they want to do?
Yeah. What comes to my mind is it's a South Park ridiculous thing. Is the underpants gnome. Do you know about the underpants gnomes? Step 1 is steal underpants. Step 2 is a big question mark. And then step 3 is profit.
That's
well, the number 2 with the big question mark. That's all the stuff in between getting the unfamiliar person to becoming the raving fan. There's a big question mark in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, and when we're in a really buoyant economy, it covers up a lot of sins, right, in your marketing. A bit like building a sort of house of cards on a table. But as soon as, and we've seen this over the last couple of years with all the disruption that COVID's caused and rising interest rates off the back of that as well, is that, someone's shaking the table a bit. And if you haven't got really solid foundations in your marketing and sales process, your whole house of cards starts to tumble down and collapse on itself. And as much as it's fantastic to think and grow rich and have an amazing team and be an inspiring leader and all that sort of stuff, the oxygen for your business that allows it to function effectively is how good you are at sales and marketing.
Yeah. By the way, are you a fan of Think and Grow Rich?
Yeah, in some ways, yes. In other ways, I think this is a giant dose of the obvious.
Well, there's some non-obvious stuff in there. Like one of the 13 principles in that book is sexual transmutation. I'd say that's pretty non-obvious. Anyway, so I digress. But the idea of building these systems and automation and kind of demystifying that big question mark, that's step 2, is something that you've become quite good at. So maybe we could walk through some of your frameworks, some of the tools that you use, some of the strategies and techniques.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's about organization, but even before organization, we're looking at sort of, I guess, 3 real stages, in building a sales and marketing engine, that consistently delivers. And I know, if you're listening to this, you're probably thinking, one of the biggest stresses for entrepreneurs is not knowing where your next customer is going to come from. Right? That's the kind of stuff of nightmares that keeps you up at night and going, okay, I've just lost a client. I don't know where the next one's coming from. And particularly for small businesses, obviously a little bit different at the enterprise sort of scale, but to the same effect, right? If you know where your next customer is coming from, it gives you a lot of confidence and clarity and certainty about what you can then commit to in your business. Right? And so, if we can address that first thing, and I think, one of the first areas we need to do is we need to get our strategy right. Like if you just go out to a marketing agency right now and say, help me, they will sell you the thing that they're good at. So if you go to an SEO agency, SEO is the hammer to bang all nails. If you go to a Google Ads company, Google Ads is the savior for everything. Right? If you go to someone who's doing outreach and appointment setting, well, that is the thing that is going to solve all of your woes. And that's not necessarily the case. We really need to understand who our customer is in and how they want to buy from us. Where are they? How do they want to buy from us? So if you're selling to, mum and dads, well, get involved in the P&C at your local school, because that's where a lot of mum and dads are going to hang out. If you
so P&C, is that
so parent and committee, school thing. I'm not sure there's a sort of equivalent term.
Yeah, PTA is what they say over
right?
here.
Parent-teacher
association. Yeah.
Get involved in that, and you'll find a bunch of people, who can have your thing. That's probably the first place to start, right? And really mapping out, well, now that I've found this person that represents my ideal client, and I see a ton of people, involved in things like BNI and other networking events, and I constantly see people stand up and say, a great referral for me is anyone or somebody. Right? Now, anyone and someone is not a really good, way of getting your customer to go, oh, is that who you are? And we have this fear, I think, of FOMO, of missing out if we don't say everyone's my client. Even Facebook did it. When Facebook first started going, they ran ads on Facebook for Facebook, ads platform, saying there are 1 billion people on Facebook and all of them could be your client. That was one of Facebook's ads, right, for their ad platform. Ironically, I've seen LinkedIn for advertising on Facebook as well, but that's another thing, right? But they're not all your client. In fact, for most businesses, if you were to get 100 clients right now of your ideal customer, you would be completely overwhelmed, and you probably couldn't even take them all on at the same time, unless you're doing retail, right? 100 customers for a supermarket is not very many. But for most professional services, businesses or trades, or manufacturing, 100 new customers, right? That would probably break you almost. You know, you wouldn't know
It's a
what to do
quality
with them all of a
problem
sudden.
for sure.
It's a fantastic problem. More sales solves a multitude of sins. Not all of them, but quite a few. So really understanding who your customer is, where they hang out, and what is the journey that you want to take them on, right? So what is that they will feel emotively when they discover you, and what do you want them to do? And that's where this is where this sort of art and science, I think, blends. So if it's not obvious to them when they feel that emotion about what you want them to do next, they'll almost never do it.
So let's walk the listener through how this framework works, and how, like, maybe let's use you as an example.
Okay, so let's pick mine, right? So we typically work with professional services businesses about 7 figures, right? They've got a small team, they're looking to grow, they've got a beast that they need to feed, right? So there might be somewhere between, say, 1 and 5 million is a very typical client for us. But they've got a bunch of shit going on in their business, right? They know they need more customers. They know they're probably not onboarding really well. They know that, their team are keeping them up at night. They know they could get more productivity from the team, that sort of stuff. Okay. So what we would do is we go and look and say, well, who are your best clients? And actually go and ask those clients why they buy from you. Right? It's something almost we never do. Right? We don't actually go to our customers and say, why did you buy from us? I'm almost afraid of the answer for some reason, or I think we assume we know. But let's find out why. And we've got this idea that not all of our clients are the best clients as well. Your best clients are someone who you love talking to, who refers you on a regular basis, who pays their invoices on time, who buys all of your solution, not just part of your service offering. Okay? It's not to say we don't have those other ones that you kind of like, when they call and you pick up your phone and, you're like, who is this guy? I don't want to talk to them today.
These are great distinctions, by the way. This is really good stuff. I think the person who's listening, who's driving or in the middle of a workout, needs to re-listen to this episode when they can write down, take notes, and actually answer these questions for themselves.
Yeah, but if you were to put a lineup of all your clients that you're working with right now in a line, and go and order them best to worst. Right? It's a thing that people don't do, right? But let's look at what are the characteristics of your worst clients, right? They haggle on price. They're always demanding. They're late on payment, right? They don't show up to appointments. They don't commit to their side of the response. They don't take any responsibility for what they do, right? When they call, you cringe and go, I really don't want to talk to that person again. Okay. And yes, they're giving you money, but we get so attached to the money and not whether this person is actually helping me grow my business that you almost want to start saying, I'd be happy to refer you to someone else. Right? They're your D clients. Right? And they're that end of people who go, if I didn't have you in my life, it would be much better.
Yeah. To me, this is like opportunity cost. If you take those D clients and you kick them to the curb in a respectful way, then you make room for more A clients. But if you believe in scarcity, or you kind of buy into the illusion of scarcity, then you think that, if I don't have these D clients, then I might end up not making enough money to pay my team.
Yeah. It's absolutely right. But your team don't like working with them either.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. And if your team don't like working with them, they're like, I don't like my job so much, and then you have staff churn. Right. So it's not necessarily about top line revenue. It's also, we want to focus on profitability. The purpose of your business is to make profit for you to be able to spend on the lifestyle that you want. Right. Not just to churn out customer outcomes. I think customer outcomes are actually a byproduct. The main purpose of your business is to make profit for you as the owner. Right? So take a long, hard look at which clients you're working with. Right? Your D clients are the ones you don't make as much profit on because they consume more of your time, right? And your team's time to deliver to. And so that's one of the first things we want to look at. when we start to isolate who are the best clients, we need to start looking at the commonalities of those. Where are they? How did they buy from you? Who were they referred by? Right? What process did they go through to purchase from you? And then really start to isolate what it is that is generating those ideal clients, and do more of that and less of the other stuff. Okay? We're not trying to do 6 million different sort of marketing channels. Work on the stuff that gives you your best clients the most often. And so if that's from strategic partners, go and build a strategy around building more strategic partners. If those people come from LinkedIn and you spend 5 minutes a day on LinkedIn and 6 hours a day on Facebook or Instagram, stop spending time on Facebook and Instagram and spend more time on LinkedIn. Not just because someone said that you needed to do it, or you read it in a forum somewhere that this is the best strategy for, that you should do. And so that's the second part, is really around building a lead generation system that gives you predictable results for the inputs that you put into it. Okay. Mm-hmm. So don't just keep doing your podcast for the sake of doing your podcast. Start looking at that and saying, is my podcast actually moving the needle on my key metrics? So I spend, because I run a podcast as well, Stephan, right? As you know, right? Mm-hmm. If I spend 2 hours a week recording podcast episodes and another $1,000 having it produced and distributed and all that sort of other stuff, well, that's a resource cost to your business. So what is the metric that you are measuring to see whether that resource cost is actually delivering your result? Because if it's not, stop doing it. Spend your resources more effectively, right? And not enough companies I see, and having worked with a few of them in different sectors now, actually know what moves the needle in their business. We just do stuff for the sake of doing stuff. We run social media campaigns because we think our business needs a social media campaign. Or we run radio ads for, that may or may not work because the salesperson was really fantastic.
So is there something that you cut out of your marketing because you realized you were needing to spend your resources more effectively? Was there some social channel that you shut down, or a podcast you used to do that you don't anymore?
A few podcasts I've done that I don't do anymore. Look, it's something we measure every single week in our business. What are we doing, and is it generating a result? Like I've dropped out of networking groups that weren't generating me results, right? Having tried a bunch, not just the network, but what was their messaging we were putting in through that network. But you don't need that many things, right? Pick one channel and actually develop that out and measure it, right? And it's what we call, until that gets predictable. Until that, that if I put this much in, I get this much out. And hopefully what you get out is more than what you put in.
So let's take the example of a podcast that you no longer do. What were you measuring how were you measuring the results? What sort of metrics? And then how did you make that decision to stop doing it?
Well, let's look at not so much the podcast itself, but my current podcast I use largely to build strategic partnerships. Right, so off the back of every podcast that I record, whether it's a guest episode like we're doing right now, Stephan, or whether it's my own, my objective from that is not necessarily to get customers straight away, right? Because it's not designed around like let's discover your problems kind of thing. It's not designed as a podcast sales funnel, and it's not necessarily designed to go, what's my audience? But if you're doing podcasts, look at, is my audience increasing? Am I getting more visits to my social profiles? Are those driving more traffic to my website? Am I increasing in certain rankings? Right, so look at those ones. One of the measures I look at mine, because again, it's very focused around developing strategic partnerships, which is the conversation we have before and after the podcast, the recording itself, is to say, well, how many of these people are active referral partners in that they are referring to me? Okay, so in my case, my podcast is, can I build strategic partnerships? And are those strategic partnerships that I'm having regular calls with actually referring business?
Yeah, that's great. So,
Okay. So again, we've got to measure what is the outcome we want from our activity, not just it's more profit, right? That's too big a step. Break it down into smaller steps and say, if I do this thing, what is the result I'm measuring, right? And what is the next thing that I'm doing after that?
mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, you had asked some questions previously that were part of this framework that you walked through, like where do your ideal customers hang out? What will they feel when they've bought your product or service? And what do you want them to do in order to get them over the hurdle of going from non-customer to customer? Those sorts of questions, I'd love to hear how you would answer them for your ideal client and your marketing machine.
Yeah, look, for me, a lot of my business comes via referral. So I'm really heavily focused on, building and systemizing that, right? So the third part of our framework is really around that lead management, the relationship management side of things. And this is where it's really important to have a CRM and a properly functioning CRM that you use in your business on a daily basis to kind of manage where those relationships are up to. So there's no point in having strategic partners if you don't have a system to tell you and say, hey, it's been 2 weeks since you've heard from Stephan. You better check in now, right? Or this is where Stephan is in my kind of process, right? So the third part of your thing is not just having that predictable lead system, it's having the lead management process to manage the relationship. And so I know a lot of people say CRM officially stands for sort of customer relationship management, but I want to challenge you to think of it as contact relationship management.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yep.
All of your contacts. Now, whether that contact be your mother-in-law that you need to send flowers to on a regular basis, right? Or, staff that have applied for work with you before, but you didn't have a position for them. Those people get to go somewhere and manage those relationships, right? Your prospects, right? The fortune is in the follow-up, as they say. Keep following up with those prospects who have spoken to you. Just because when you did that sales call with them 6 months ago and it wasn't quite the right fit then, doesn't mean to say it's not the right fit now, but they've forgotten who you are. Right? Again, the thing you want them to do is not their priority. But if you kept maintaining a relationship with everyone you touched base with over the last 10, 15, 20 years, God, can you imagine how powerful your network would be?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. But the system we have, right, between our ears isn't very good at remembering all that stuff. Okay. It's the whole process is like, how do I keep myself out of danger right now?
Yeah. What sort of CRM are you using?
I'm actually using two, believe it or not.
Okay.
I'm actually using two right now. I know this sounds a bit crazy, but I've got some integration between the two of them. And so from a sales and marketing perspective, we're using Go High Level, just because I like the pipeline management a little bit better. And I'm using Keep for a lot of our automation stuff because I still, to this day, don't think that anything else on the market approaches the complexity and power of what we can do in Keep from an automation standpoint. But it's not as good, from a pipeline management perspective, right? So I think it's about finding the right tools. I often talk about sort of likening it to a basketball team, right? So if you pick your favorite basketball team in the NBA or college basketball or whatever, the team that eventually wins the championship have, 5 really good players on the court and a couple of handy bench players, right? And so, like, if we've got one really good player on the court and no support, they're probably going to lose most of their games, right? And you can probably pick a team that's like that. They've got one superstar player that's come through the draft and then they're good. Everyone else is terrible. If they got 2 good players on the court, a little bit better, they'll be competitive. They'll be about 50-50. They'll end up in the middle of the table, right? If they've got 3 really good players on their starting 5, they're going to be really good at what they do. Okay, they're going to be competitive. They're going to win a lot of games, but they won't necessarily win the championship. Okay, it's easier to shut down 2 or 3 players on a court if you've got a good defense. If you've got 5 amazing players, right, just about always that team will win the championship. Okay, they're just not going to lose very much. And if they've got some good handy bench players that come on the court, right, they're going to be the same. And if you could think about that in context of your marketing, if you've got a really good lead generation channel, right, if you've got a really good CRM that helps you manage the pipeline and helps you kind of create leverage communication, if you've got a really good onboarding process from a project management perspective, right, you're going to win most of your games because you get predictable leads, right? You can manage those relationships for longer. You know where stuff's up to, right? And you can deliver a consistent experience to those customers every single time. One of the automations I'm playing with right now is that every time a new customer comes on board, we literally automate the process to push all of the rollout and activities into our ClickUp account, which we use to kind of manage, a bit like Asana or Monday or Basecamp or whatever you want to use. So literally 30 or 40 deliverables are immediately rolled out and allocated to the team as soon as that client hits the pay now button. I don't have to go and do it every single time. So we save a ton of money in setup of every single new client. It also goes and creates a Google folder. It creates a new channel in our Slack, internal team management, right? It adds all the appropriate people into that Slack channel, including the customer, right? So, that's all happening as the customer pays, and we're not having to go and recreate it every single time, right? All of those ClickUp tasks all have Loom videos attached to it to say, well, this is how you go and execute this task. And this is the due date it's done. It's automatically assigned to a team member. So the consistency of our delivery now is really elevated, which means we can get a consistent customer experience, right? In the same way that McDonald's do. You can go to just about anywhere in the world and get the same McDonald's burger. Although I was in France recently, and they do have a Royale with cheese. Thank you, John Travolta, for that one out of Pulp Fiction. I had to go and check. That's true, right? That we're getting a consistent experience, which means that when we're getting a consistent experience that we know works, we can now work on our system to improve our system rather than doing something different every single time and getting inconsistent results for clients. And if we get a consistent result for clients, guess what? They start to refer us. Because one of the tasks is actually ask for referral.
Yeah, so that brings up a good question. Like, what do you systematize in terms of referrals to encourage and kind of, I don't know, goad them to provide referrals? Because that's not easy to get systematized.
It's not, but the easiest system is to just make sure you consistently ask. One of the most interesting statistics I've seen come out of any study, I think was done by HubSpot a couple of years back, was that only 15% of salespeople in the US today ask for a referral on a consistent basis. Right? And if you're in professional services, 80% of your business comes via referral. If you're under $1 million, if you're over $1 million, 80% comes via referral and referrals from strategic partners. So the first system is just to ask on a regular basis, how else can I help you? Who do you know that would benefit from a conversation about the work that we've been doing with you? Right? And just ask, right? That's the first system. So if you can't do it, I don't know, tattoo it on the back of your skull, right? Print out a thing and a Post-it note and well, maybe not the back of your skull, back of your eyelids would probably help, right? Print out a Post-it note, stick it on your screen and say, at every single call I have with a customer, I'm going to say, who do you know that I should know, right? Just having that little system in there, you don't necessarily need to automate it at all, right? But just get into the habit of asking, right? By going, when I do a call, this is the thing that I'd go through and do.
This is great. And that's
and again, be really
so
specific.
Obvious,
if you want to take it one step further, go to their LinkedIn profile, their Facebook profile, and see who they're connected to, and say, "Hey, I saw you connected to John Smith. I'd really appreciate an introduction. I'd love to see if we could help them."
Yeah, common sense, but yet common sense isn't that common, right? It's obvious once you say it.
Yeah, that's the thing though. Like, and if you want to be able to duplicate what it is that you do as the owner in your business to basically exit yourself, you've got to create a system that someone else can follow, right? If we don't create a system for someone else to follow, we won't get the same results every single time. And so, I've spoken with financial sort of services aggregators and firms, and they might have 100 or 150 reps working for them, right? And of course, those 150 reps won't all get the same results. Why? Because they all might know what to do, but they're not following a system that will get them consistent results. Otherwise, you'd have more people getting the same results, not some getting $1 million in sales and some getting $100,000 in sales.
Yeah. So do you have training, like a whole kind of training regimen with hundreds of Loom videos and so forth to help these team members to?
Yeah, we've got a few. Right? And again, we look at, this is something I sort of picked up out of probably Michael Gerber's E-Myth, which is a fantastic book that I think everyone should read.
Yeah. Michael's been on this podcast, by the way.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
There we go. I love an introduction. If we look at, how do we systemize it so that someone else can get the same results or close to the same results that I would get, well, document it, systemize it, right? So that you can deliver the same results every single time, right? Every touch point that we have with our customer, right, or prospect or partner or, supplier, whoever it happens to be, we need to look at this as this is marketing. We're not in the plumbing business. We're not in the, switchboard manufacturing business. We're not in the auto parts business. We're in marketing businesses that happen to deliver, the product we deliver. I'm not an accountant. I'm a marketer who happens to deliver accounting services.
That might be a stretch for some people. They might.
It is a stretch. But yeah, it is a stretch.
Resistance
but every
on
single
that
touch point we have with someone.
Yeah.
I have, yeah. But every single touch point we have someone is going to leave one of three experiences. It's going to leave a positive experience with them that they'll want to do more of. It's going to leave a neutral experience that they couldn't care less about. Or it's going to be a negative experience where they go, I don't want to do that again, right? And that's the fundamental sort of baseline to marketing. Can I create experiences, right, that the person I'm having that experience with wants to do more of, right? So your delivery is as much marketing as your Facebook ad.
Yeah. By the way, what would, for somebody who wants to try Facebook ads or Instagram ads, Google ads, but they haven't set up the system for that, they haven't set up, let's say, landing pages and ad copy and the whole funnel and everything, what would you recommend as their process to go about building that as a lead source?
Yeah. If it's the ad itself is probably the last part, right? So I think the first, as we talked about before, the first thing is looking at, and again, assuming we're putting our money in the right place, right? We go,
Yeah.
And if you're a trade, absolutely get on Google Ads. Understand again who that customer is, where they want to go, right? But what do you want them to do? So once they even before you create the ad itself, right? What is it? Someone who sees your ad, where are you going to send them, and what do you want them to feel when they get there? Okay. Once they get to that thing, whether it's a landing page or whatever, right? What is the thing that they're going to do on my landing page or my homepage of my website or on this training that I've just delivered to them? What I want them to feel. What do I want them to do next? And ultimately, we're getting a point where they're going to click to buy or they're going to get on a call with us. But be really deliberate about mapping out that journey, right? So get a whiteboard, get some post-it notes on a blank wall somewhere, right? Look at what is the decision that person's going to do. So they're either going to do the thing you want them to do or they're not. If they don't do the thing you want them to do, well, what is the next obvious step that you want them to take? Right? And I can almost guarantee you the next obvious step is not disappear on you. It's do this instead. Okay? they're either going to do the thing that or they're not. If they don't, what do you want them to do? Okay, are they going to do that or not do that? If they don't do that, what do you want them to do? What do you want the obvious next step to do? Okay, and just like Wizard of Oz, it's okay to kind of get a little distracted with a Cowardly Lion and Tin Man and everything for a little bit. Ultimately, we want them to get back on that yellow brick road and get to the Emerald City. Okay, then you can start coming back and saying, well, what is the emotion? So when I'm crafting my copy for my Google ad or my Facebook ad or Instagram ad or whatever it happens to be, who do I want to put them in front of it? What do I want them to feel when I see that ad? And what is the obvious next step that I want them to do? Okay, the obvious next step might be take this training, go to this landing page. Okay, now I'm on the landing page. Your copy there is going to be all about what do I want them to feel and what do I want the obvious next step for them to do is. Right? And that's all the way through your funnel. Okay? Then you can go and create your same thing with your imagery. Okay? If I see this image, what emotion do I want it to evoke? And then the next step. Okay? Then you can start constructing it and actually start putting ad budgets to things, to stuff.
Yeah.
Okay? But also even with ad budgets, right? It's like launching a rocket. If you don't put enough fuel in the thing, it's never going to get off the ground. Right? So make sure you commit enough to actually get a reasonable test and then observe the results. Okay? And tweak where you need to. If you get 10,000 people clicking on your ad, but then no one registering, the problem is not with the ad. Right? The problem is what you're asking to do at the next step. It's either too big a step, right? Or not interesting enough step, or there's no congruency in messaging between one step and the next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good stuff. Awesome.
Had this ad campaign, this is a really good example. I had this ad campaign for Toyota years ago, right? And ad was working, sending a lot of traffic, and was for a sort of a service offering they were doing, like a car service offering. And they couldn't convert anybody, but they'd had the registration form for the car service below the fold on the landing page. And it was in a rotating ad block that wasn't always there. So a customer would click on the ad to go to the landing page, but then they wasn't always on the page it was being sent to register for the next step. And so, of course, they disappeared.
So I guess that based on your involvement, you got them to change that, and then their results improved significantly. Awesome. Very good. So if our listener wants to get those kind of improvements in their marketing and their outcomes and results, presumably you'll take on some clients here. What would be the process for them to, get on a call with you or your team?
Yeah, look, just reach out for a chat to start with. You can connect with me at tim@winmoreclients.com.au or help me at winmoreclients.com.au. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Stephan. I'm sure you'll put the links on that, for that in the show notes.
Yep.
And let's have a chat and see if there's something we can help you with or point you in the right direction.
Awesome. And do you have a couple of examples of clients that they've allowed you to mention their names?
There's probably a few in there, but anything from insurance brokers, asset finance, manufacturing, trades. Who else we got in here? IT, finance, more finance, management consulting, HR. Like list goes on.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you do some great work for a number of folks and a number of industries. So, yeah, awesome. If our listener could be left with one very easy next action for them to take, other than, of course, contacting you, and it's not something that we've already talked about in this episode, what would be that nugget that you want to leave them with?
Oh, God. Actually, one that I've been reflecting on a bit lately, and I think this applies to all entrepreneurs, right? If it's not working for you, like the only person that can change it is you. If you don't like a client, you don't have to keep working with them. If you don't like your business, you can change it. Right? If you don't want to go to work today, you don't have to. Right? That's the great thing I think about being a business owner, is that ultimately the decision and the outcomes you get are entirely within your control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have so much more agency than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you, Tim, and thank you, listener. Go out there, make it a great week, reveal some light in the world. We'll catch you in the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.